Hello and welcome to the RIAH Experience Webinar, a monthly webinar series exploring the challenges and mistakes faced when planning a wedding. The goal of the webinar is to give engaged couples a better understanding of what's to come and what will work for them. Its aim is to enrich couples' knowledge and also support the industry while doing it. Okay. So thank you for joining and welcome. Happy Sunday to you. I have people joining from Lagos, Nigeria. I have people from London, from Ghana, from Birmingham, from London as well. So thank you very much. Welcome to the third series of the RIAH Experience Webinar. If this is the first time joining us, my name is Tobi Yusuf, and I am the founder of RIAH Events and Weddings. RIAH Events and Weddings is dedicated to planning events, birthday parties, baby shower, bridal shower, weddings all around the world. I call myself an international wedding planner or event planner. We're dedicated to, planning an event that is unique to yourself. We pay attention to details. We look after you. We make sure what we're doing. We work with you to create a memorable experience for you and your guest. So today, like I said earlier, is the third series of the RIAH Experience Webinar, and we're talking about budget planning for your wedding. There's no better time to do that now. It's the month of January. It's Financial Awareness Month, and I'm sure, let me not say I'm sure, but perhaps most of you that are here today got engaged recently, possibly over Christmas or New Year. So congratulations to you. So it just seems good to just have this webinar today. And also with so much uncertainty going on in the world, most especially in London, it's good to just, talk about budgeting. Quickly, if you have, as I go along, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat box, or there is a Q&A box. You can drop your question in there as well. And then towards the end, I'll go through the Q&A session where I will be answering any questions that you may have. Today, like I said, we're talking about budgeting, and this is one topic that a lot of people do not really like to talk about. I, for one person, I would say that, when I got married, it wasn't something I wanted to talk about at all. I've been married over 5 years now, and I remember, with my partner, then my husband now, we never had that conversation on how much do we want to spend on our wedding. We never brought it up. I think for me, because I was so worried that I would get no from him if I say I want this, I want that, and then if we find out how much it cost, he will probably say no. So I didn't want to have that conversation with him at all. So it was almost like I was spending my money, he was spending his money. Even as of today, if you ask me how much did I spend on my wedding, I can't really say that this is how much I spent on my wedding. And it wasn't really good for our relationship because we weren't having any discussions at all about the things we wanted. I knew the vision. I knew what I wanted for my wedding. Back then, yes, there was Instagram, but I got married in 2013. So Instagram then was not really a big thing. At least for me, I wasn't really on Instagram. So most of my vendors, I found them on Google. I found them on Nigerian blogs. So because I knew what I wanted for my wedding, I knew the type of venue, I knew the decorator. So, that vision in my head, I didn't really want anybody to just say no to my vision. So I just had things in my head that this is what I want. So it's not a good thing at all. It's not a good way to start a relationship because, towards the time of the wedding, we had arguments, oh, you didn't tell me this, you didn't tell me that. And, we got into the wedding just not really, communicating. And in a marriage, that's what you want. You want communication. You want to be able to speak. So, when budgeting your wedding, as soon as you get engaged, the first thing really is to have the honest discussion with your partner on how much are we going to spend on our wedding. And whilst preparing for this topic, budgeting for your wedding, and as a wedding planner, I have a software that I use that has a budget manager tool, whereby it's sort of like a spreadsheet where we put all every amount of things. And I realized, I'm Nigerian born, by the way, I'm from Nigeria. that most of the budget manager tools are not really specific to African weddings. As you may know, Nigerian, and I know Ghana as well, because we do have somebody joining from Ghana here. We have two set of ceremonies. So you have a traditional wedding and then you have your white wedding. So it's always good to keep that in mind, to have budget for the traditional wedding and then the white wedding. So because of that, I realize there's not many budget manager tools that let you do that. So because of that, well, I'm going to be working on a budget manager tool, which I'm going to be releasing on my website later on, maybe 2-3 months later on. So that'll be something I will share with everybody that's joined this webinar today. And that's one thing that I feel like would be really helpful for us in the African community if you're having a multicultural wedding, whereby you tend to have two different set of ceremonies, then it would be really helpful. So yes, budget, it's something that you have to talk about you have to talk about it with your partner. You really have to think, how much can we afford for this wedding? And I understand in the economy that we are in now, due to the situation, a lot of people lost their jobs, or they've been made redundant or things like that. So it's always good to be honest. The research showed that in 2019, the average spent on a wedding was about £31,000. Again, this is not considering the African wedding where you have two ceremonies. So this £31,000 is possibly based on just having one ceremony. And again, it depends on the style of wedding you want, but that's what the research says. And this was in 2019. As we all know, in 2020, there were barely no weddings, well, especially in London. And even now in London, we don't even know what's happening with weddings as of now. So considering that was the budget in 2019, and then also research showed that Instagram has increased wedding budget by 50%. This is due to pressure that people see on Instagram. People go on Instagram, they go on Bella Niger, they see all these blogs, love weddings, African weddings, love my dress. You see weddings and then you're like, oh, I want that. So because of the pressure on Instagram, the budget for a wedding is increased by 50%, which is from 31 to 60. So you're looking about 70,000 really on a wedding. So that's something that you have to discuss with your partner. How much can we spend on this wedding? And I know it might be tricky, it might be difficult to have that conversation, but I assure you that having that conversation will just make things go smoothly, because as you're getting married, as you're getting into marriage, you want to be comfortable, you want to be confident in yourself and in your partner, that you can have any discussion with your partner. So it's always very important. Because this topic is very important, I've had to take note, I've written lots of notes. I'm just going through my book and reading through them. So, whilst you're discussing with your partner about how much you want to spend, it's also good to then start thinking about your account. I mean, it's a different story when you get married if you want to have the same account or separate accounts. But when planning a wedding, it's always advisable to have a separate account, so whereby you can then monitor how much you're spending. There's a lot of banks now, like Starling Banks, or is it Monzo, whereby you can split your pot. So, there's shopping, there's bills. So you can do something like that where you have a pot called weddings, and then you put all your money in there. So it's very easy for you to see that this is how much you're spending on your wedding. This is how much is gone on your wedding. I, for one person, I mean, I've got 2 children, so I go to Tesco a lot. Not just Tesco. I go to Iceland grocery shopping. So, I spend a lot, doing grocery shopping every week. And when I look at my bank statement, I see all the shopping lists, and I can't really separate it from my bills as well. So it's good to just have that separate account to be able to visualize how much you've been spending on your wedding. And also, it's good to just know that, when you're planning your wedding, if perhaps your wedding is in September and then you start looking for suppliers now, you have to think, are you ready to pay these suppliers? Do you have enough funds ready? Because you're looking at about 50%. Some suppliers would ask you to pay 50% deposit before they can book you. And so, you have to really consider that are you ready to put that money down? You might have had some savings, and then you're ready to just to pay that. So that's good. But it's always good to have that at the back of your mind that some suppliers would ask you for 50%. I mean, considering the situation now, I don't know what suppliers are asking for now, but majority of suppliers ask for 50% upfront of the total cost that they've been provided. Secondly, after you've discussed with your partner, you've had that honest discussion with your partner, then you need to think, do you have anyone in your family who is going to contribute to your wedding budget? I come from a big family. I come from a family of 8, so I have 7 siblings. My husband as well come from a big family of 7, so he's got 6 siblings. So, we were confident that, yes, our family will put some money towards the wedding for us. So, I think that was one thing that made me want to go with my vision as well. That, oh God, my mom will help me. My dad, my sisters will give me some money if I need to. So if the caterer says your fee is £5,000, I'm like, that's okay. I'll ask my mom to give me money. But then it doesn't always work like that. If I didn't talk to my mom to say, Mom, I need £3,000, I don't even know if she's got it. So it's good. It's better not to just assume that family members or friends will help you out. So it's always good to discuss, to know, will you be getting help from anybody, from your family members? And, just have that at the back of your mind. Okay, so you can include that in how much you have. And also, even if family members have said that, yes, they will help you, it's good to have a plan B. You just never know. Last minute family members may come, with excuses that, oh, so we can't afford to do this now. So it's always good to have a plan B of if anybody is saying they're going to help you out with the wedding. So after you've that's point number 2. Point number 3 is a guest list. That is one of the biggest thing that causes your wedding budget to just plunge, to go up, because you can have guests from 50 up until 500, 600, and by the time your guest list is going up, your food is going up, your drinks, the price is going up. So you have a catering of I'm just going to use £20 per head, and for 100 guests that's already £2,000. Am I correct? 20 times 100, is that right? Yeah, I think it's about, so by the time you start increasing the number of your guests, that fee, that cost just goes up like that. So it's always good to be mindful, of your guest list. I know you want to invite your friends, you want to invite everybody that, your work colleagues, but at the same time, think about that number 1 point, that discussion you had with your partner, how much you can afford. That's something you have to really think about, and you have to cut down your guest list. Once you see that it's making you go over your budget, then the guest list would have to be reduced. And considering the situation now, Zoom weddings, everyone is having events on Zoom. If that's an option you would like to go for, if you really want people to be at your wedding, they can join you via Zoom. That's the thing that is right now. I mean, this is I'm talking about people for in London, because I know in Nigeria and Ghana weddings are still going ahead, but unfortunately in London, and I'm sure in some EU countries as well, weddings are on hold right now. And point number 4, once you've got that budget, so let's say your budget is £30,000, it's always good to have 10 to 15% put aside. So in your head, your budget is 30,000. That's how much you can spend. That's the limit. But in your head, when you're planning, let your budget be 25 to 27,000 pounds. I hope that makes sense. So that the remaining amount that you have, you can then put those into hidden cost, into unexpected cost. So that way you've met your budget anyway. You've not just said your budget is 30,000, because trust me, by the time you put your budget as 30,000, there will be little things that will add up and make your budget go. You'll be surprised, your budget could go to 40,000 from 30 to 40, just because the little things that are adding up. So it's always good to just have that extra 10 to 15%. And it's a good thing if you don't spend that 10 to 15%. It's amazing, but it's just always good to set that aside. So After that point, you know, you've discussed, you've set your budget, you know, you have an idea of your guest list. Then it's good to then, when you start looking for your suppliers, when you start looking for your vendors. I mean, as a wedding planner, if you have a wedding planner would do all of that for you anyway. They would find you the vendors based on the budget side that you. So if you have a wedding planner, it's good to be honest with your wedding planner as well. So you need to let your wedding planner know that this is how much we want to spend on our wedding. You have to be really honest with your wedding planner. Don't tell your wedding planner £50,000 and then your wedding planner then starts finding you vendors and you're saying you can't afford it. But so it's always good to have the honest discussion with your wedding planner as well. And then if you don't have a wedding planner, if you're planning your wedding yourself, when you're looking for these vendors, it's always good to ask them every questions that you can. You want to know everything. You want to know how much would cost, if there is VAT, if there is any hidden cost somewhere. You want to know all of that. So it's always good to put the questions through to your vendors. And considering the world we're in now, a lot of vendors have changed their terms and conditions, their agreements. So it's always good when you speak to them, you know, find out how they're dealing with things, how much this is going to cost if you were to cancel, if you were to change dates or anything like that. So because you don't want to be surprised later on when the vendor then gives you an extra cost and you're like, you didn't tell me this, I didn't know about that. So it's good to speak to your vendors about this. But again, if you have a wedding planner, that is the job of the wedding planner, to clarify things, to make things clear for you and the vendor. You know, with some vendors as well, you have like your makeup and hairstylist, whereby you might want to have a trial. It's always good to know from these vendors, would I need to pay? How much is it going to cost me? Should I have two trials with you? How much is it going to be? So, you know, you need to know those questions. Or even with a photographer as well, they do pre-wedding shoots. If you want a pre-wedding shoot, you know, how much is it going to cost me? Is it inclusive of my wedding package? So, you know, those are the questions that you need to be asking. That there's nothing too small, anything stupid that you can't ask. You always have to ask. And also, if you don't ask, you won't get. So with your vendors as well, if they're offering any discount, if they have any offer at the moment, it's always good to ask that question to your vendors. That there's nothing wrong in doing that at all. I, for one person, before becoming a wedding planner, I was always shy. I didn't really know how to ask people, give me a discount, give me an offer. But then I just think to myself, I'm on the phone with this person. It's not like they can see me, you know. I mean, I will see them later on, but there's no harm in me just voicing out and saying, oh, can I get a discount of this? Or please, can you reduce that for me? There's absolutely no harm in doing that at all. So please do feel free to ask any vendor, you know, if there's something they can do for you in one way or the other. And every little helps. Nothing at all is too small. You'll be surprised by the time you take some pounds off these things, and it just sort of reduces your budget as well. It saves you money one way or the other. And then my next point is, you have to prioritize your budget. And when I say prioritize, what I mean is, so if you're having a wedding, the key things at your wedding, well, the first key things are your venue, food, and drinks. You know, those are really the key things. You need a place to get